So thank you everyone for joining tonight. Hopefully there'll be a few more people joining the call, but it's great to see students online to join us tonight for our office hour session. So my name is Jen Bentley and I'm the Alumni Engagement Officer for the Faculty of Health. But I'd like to begin by acknowledging that much of the work of the University of Waterloo takes place on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. Our main campus is situated on the Haldeman Tract, the land granted to the Six Nations that includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. Our active work toward reconciliation takes place across our campuses through research, learning, teaching, and community building, and is centralized within our Indigenous Relations Office if you're looking for more information or more learning for yourself. I'm excited to welcome everyone to our Alumni Office Hour session. This is our first week of the spring term events that we're hosting, and we're lucky to have alumnus Mujeeb Duranai here to speak with us today. So bringing back alumni to connect with students is really important for both the Faculty of Health, but also the broader university. Alumni show our students what's possible, the success that they've had, and the stories they share help to shine a light on the path for students who might be wondering what their own futures might look like. And we've been hosting these office hour events every term now, and we're planning to continue those into the fall term. So if you have any requests for specific careers that you're interested in hearing from or ideas for us for these events, please feel free to share them in the chat, or you can email me at any time. My email is jennifer.bentley@uwaterloo.ca. So that's a little introduction, but also in order for us to make the most out of this small group session, it's always nicer to have friendly faces to look at. So I would encourage you to turn your cameras on if you're comfortable with that, and also to use your mic when you have questions. You can raise your hand and make this a little bit more of a personal engagement with Mujib. And because we have a nice small group, it'd be great if we could go through some introductions of all the students here today. So you can tell us what program you're in and what term you're in as well, just to give Mujib a good sense of who's on the call and asking questions today. So we will start with brief introductions, and then we'll get into Mujib and his story. So I'm just going to call on people to just give a quick introduction. So if you can turn your camera on and your mic when I call your name, that'd be great. And or if you're somewhere where you can't participate, you can just put a note in the chat as well. So as I mentioned, I'm Jen Bentley and the Alumni Engagement Officer for the Faculty of Health. And Aisha, I will let you go next.
Sure. I'm Aisha. I'm in my 3B. I'm going to my 3B term of health studies this fall. And this spring term, I am the Alumni Advancement Assistant working under Jen.
Awesome, thank you. And Sarah Holman.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm doing my just finishing my first year of kinesiology at Waterloo.
Great, thanks for joining. Allegra?
Hi everyone, I'm Allegra. I actually am graduating in June from Kinesiology co-op program.
Wonderful. Junaid, is it? Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, that was right. I'm Junaid. I just finished my 3B term in kinesiology. And yeah.
Cool. Jordy, is it Jordy or?
Yeah, it's Jordy. You got it right. I graduated last year and I took a year off and just trying to look about what options there are out here. So yeah.
Great, thanks. Carrie, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm just finishing the first year of kinesiology in Waterloo.
Great. And Nidhi, sorry.
Yep, that's correct. Hi, my name is Nidhi and I just finished my degree in health in April.
Fantastic. And lastly, I'm sorry, Rayehe?
Yeah, it's Raya.
Raya,
Actually,
sorry.
it's okay, it's okay. So actually, I'm a grade 12 student. I'm planning to come next year, hopefully. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Did you message on Instagram to ask if you could come?
Yes, that was me.
Great. Well, thanks for being here, and hopefully this will help you make your decision to come to Waterloo. Great. So thanks everyone for taking that moment to introduce yourselves. That's great. And then we can have a much more personal conversation here with Mujib tonight. So instead of me reading your bio, Mujib, I'm going to pass it over to you to introduce yourself and share your story with everybody about your time at Waterloo and how you got to where you are now.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Jen, and thanks for having me. Nice to meet you all. Thanks a lot for sharing where you're at in your academic journeys, and turning the videos on in a virtual world where it's easy to just kind of leave them off. Seems like an exciting group that we've got kind of the full mix of even grade 12 to a couple students that have just graduated. So congrats to those students that have just finished. Everyone's, I think, learning at an exciting time. So I did my Bachelor of Science in 2013 is when I graduated from UW. I did kinesiology, so 2013, and then I actually stayed in Waterloo and I worked in housing and residences for a year full time. I'll get into a little bit about that later on, but after that, then I went to the University of Toronto to do my Master's of Science in Physiotherapy. So I finished there in 2016. And then a few years later, I did another advanced healthcare practice master's. It's a Master of Clinical Science in Manipulative Therapy is what the degree is. So essentially, that's a program designed for practicing physios to learn advanced hands-on skills, how to be effective with your hands, how to learn to do spinal manipulation and integrate that into my practice. And yeah, right now I'm working at the border of Mississauga and Oakville. There's a clinic close to Clarkson GO train station. So I live here and I work pretty close to here as well. And yeah, that's a quick summary about me. At the clinic, I'll just give a quick overview before I get into my Waterloo experiences. At my clinic, so sorry, I'll backtrack for a quick sec. So this is something that I didn't know about physiotherapists before physio school, is the different areas that physios can work in. So physios can work in hospitals, working with individuals with cardiovascular or respiratory diseases. So that's kind of one specialty. Another specialty is working with neurological populations. So people with a stroke or cerebral palsy, all kinds of neurological disorders. So that's another umbrella. And then the third one is working in orthopaedics or musculoskeletal care. So that's what I think most people think of when they think of physiotherapy. So that's the area that I work in, which is at a private clinic where people come to see me for ankle sprains, chronic neck pain, tingling somewhere in the body that they can't quite figure out where it's coming from. So yeah, that's a quick little overview of where I'm at right now. And yeah, my plan for today is to share a bit about key parts of my journey that ultimately led to me applying to physio school and becoming a physiotherapist. All my life, I knew that I wanted to work in healthcare. So even as a child, that's kind of when it was solidified for me, just based on my family experiences with my parents. I knew for sure that healthcare was for me, but I never really knew which profession in particular that I wanted to pursue. So then I reflected on how living an active, physically active lifestyle was always something that I highly valued. Growing up, I played a lot of sports with my three brothers. We had a childhood full of meaningful experiences through sport and karate. So naturally, kinesiology was a good kind of natural fit program fit for me to consider when applying in grade 12 for those reasons. And I knew that it would keep many doors open for me after graduating kinesiology, doors open in the healthcare world, I should say, more so than some other programs. And so a key moment for me was tearing a ligament in my knee when I was in grade 11. So this was still in high school. And I had this ligament surgically repaired 2 years later when I was a UW student, actually. And ultimately that experience is what solidified for me that physiotherapy is for me. That's what I want to pursue. I had such an incredible, successful rehab process after the surgery that what I went through, I want to help others go through that same thing. I returned to a meaningful activity, which was volleyball for me at that time, and it still is. So I absolutely love volleyball. I love rock climbing, and I'm pretty jealous of the new rock climbing wall that you all have access to now that we didn't at the time. So going through the rehab process firsthand and experiencing everything and playing volleyball within about 6 months or so, that really opened my eyes and it kind of lit a flame inside me that that's what I want to pursue. So at the time, volleyball itself, while it may seem like such a small thing, it was such a huge part of my life because it was my outlet. It's what I looked forward to on a weekly basis. When I was a UW student, I worked pretty hard, as you have to when you're in AHS and kin. As you all know, it's a pretty academically heavy program, and so it was. It's important to have those outlets for stress relief and to stay balanced. And so volleyball helped me achieve that balance. Volleyball was one way that I was able to feel balanced and not like academics was my life all day, every day. So that's kind of a tip that I would have for everyone, is to try to achieve and understand first and achieve what that state of balance is for you, because it's different for everyone. It's going to be different from person to person. In my first year, I wasn't very involved at all. I went into first year with the mindset of I'm just going to study and focus on my marks, and we'll see how that goes. I'm going to give it my all. And it turned out that my first year marks were actually my worst marks of the 4 years. And so I knew that I needed to change something. And that's where this element of balance that I'm talking about really, really comes in. So I started to think about what are the ways that I want to get involved and try to feel like different parts of my brain and myself are being stimulated in an optimal way. So the first thing I did is I volunteered to be an orientation week leader. I thought about how the leaders that I had were incredible mentors to me. And I love the thought of being a role model for others and being a mentor for others and passing that forward the way that my mentors were for me. The other thing that I did was that I kind of alluded to this earlier, but I joined a volleyball club on campus. So we met once a week, every term, and we played 3 hours every Friday, actually. So I knew that that was in my schedule. I'm going to work hard all week, and I have that to look forward to. So already going into second year, my energy and my time allocation was different from a social stimulation, a physical activity, and an academic standpoint as well. Overall, I just felt more fulfilled, and naturally my marks started to go up. And just a side note, take what you will from this story. You don't have to follow my suit, right? So I'm just kind of sharing my journey, and this might not apply to everyone, but it's just some food for thought, right? Because we can, going from high school where there's so much pressure to achieve marks to then get accepted into university, and then there's still such a high pressure there. I think when I reflect on getting involved and pursuing extracurriculars and hobbies, it's something that even still to this day, I hugely value. And so even though I had less time for studying at that time, it allowed me to feel more fulfilled. And as a byproduct of that, I was able to give studying my full attention at the times that I was studying. So that's what made sense to me. I wasn't working, I wasn't studying more, but I was studying smarter. And I pursued some, I looked into other resources to kind of change my study habits. And so I think my studying, I would describe as, I didn't study more, I studied smarter. And the way that I was learning was different and more conducive for me. So that's a little context for why returning to volleyball after my surgery was so meaningful to me. Like I said, I worked hard every day so that I knew I had something to look forward to. And so that was really the true impetus or the core of why I wanted to be a physio, is I wanted to provide others with that same kind of fulfillment, whatever it is for them. And so at the time of my surgery and rehab, that concept of balance, I think I needed to shift that because I couldn't be physically active the same way. And fortunately for me, I fell in love with that concept of student leadership and giving back and getting involved. And I learned that the more that I did, the more I learned, and the more I felt challenged, and the more I grew. And I love that. And so I kept trying to push that boundary of how much can I challenge myself and learn outside of academics. And so I pursued some other opportunities. So fortunately for me at that time, I was in a role where I was planning orientation week with a couple other, not classmates, but they were friends of mine who were in, one was in rec and leisure and the other one was in health studies. And I had a super supportive supervisor named Jen Bentley at the time. And so that was so my main point here, just to summarize, because I can go on and on about stuff on tangents for forever, but my main point here is that life kind of goes through ebbs and flows, right? So I had to take a step back from my physical activity for about 6 months and focus on some rehab for my knee, but I still wanted to fulfill that concept of balance and what that meant for me. And so that's going to shift for everyone, I think. That concept of work-life balance will shift depending on priorities, deadlines, midterm season or final season. Lots of factors play into that. And so my tip that I would give any student or myself at that time is that always remember that you've got a wealth of resources at UW at the times that life kind of ebbs and flows. The resources on campus, resources in the faculty, all kinds of clubs on any topic, right? I was wowed by the number of clubs on campus and all kinds of ways, different ways of being physically active on campus, academic resources, mental health resources, labs with profs if you want to volunteer there. And so I'd encourage all students to get their feet wet in some kind of commitment, because there's always something to learn too as you get involved. And I kind of alluded to that as well. And so I'll kind of stop there with the why behind physio. Like I think I've tried to paint a picture of why physio and what were some of the experiences and the concept of balance. And so, but I do want to get into that concept that I alluded to of challenging myself and personal growth and personal development. I mentioned how I felt like the more I did outside of the classroom, the more I learned and the more that I wanted to keep learning. So I pursued some other extracurricular volunteer opportunities on campus. Ended up being a residence life-don at Village One and volunteered at the campus physiotherapy clinic. I volunteered in a lab at BMH. I was on the awesome exec in a role there. So I kind of got my feet wet in all kinds of different commitments and learned something and had multiple takeaways from all of those. And so some things that I pursued, I was very passionate about, and some I learned that I wasn't, and that's okay too, right? That's a learning opportunity in and of itself, because for me, for example, I went into research that lab thinking that there were certain aspects that I would enjoy, and I did enjoy some aspects, but then I learned that there were certain things that my life would be okay without, you know? So through all of these experiences that I had, I developed a number of skills that in the moment, whether I realized it or not, or in the moment, I may not have been fully aware that I was learning certain skills, but now in hindsight, when I reflect on those experiences, I've been working on things that I'm implementing on a day-to-day basis right now that I've been working on since my time at UW. So I'll give a few key examples of that. And so that really is my main point, that within the experience, there's always a takeaway, and you can develop a skill, and then you never know if you're going to keep working on it. So for me, the teamwork skills that I gained through being a Don, working on orientation week, that's something that I apply every day right now. So as a physio, I see a different patient at the clinic every 30 minutes. So I have 60-minute assessments and 30-minute treatments. And so for certain treatments, I might pull in another physio to do an acupuncture technique that I haven't performed, or to get their eyes on someone's low back if I've kind of struggled to, I've tried some treatments and they're not getting better and I want a fresh set of eyes. So that's where my teamwork skills come in, my communication with everyone and pulling team members together, explaining what I've done in a succinct way and getting their opinion on the matter. The other thing too is that I regularly communicate with certain family doctors that patients have. So that's another element of teamwork, where I need to communicate with key members of the circle of care for a patient, and ultimately we all have the same goal in mind. The other skill, I mean, I could list these off, but I'll kind of wrap up with a couple of quick things. The other one that I've already mentioned is, in a little bit of detail, is communication. And so through all of those experiences I mentioned on campus, communication has been developed in so many different ways and contexts. And yeah, being able to communicate in a sensitive manner to each individual who is unique and coming from diverse backgrounds, and treating people like actual human beings in a professional way, that's something that you all are already working on now, whether you realize it or not. And that's something that I do on a daily basis. And I have to tailor that approach every 30 minutes, right? I have to understand who's the person in front of me, what's the most optimal communication style that would be helpful for this person. Because the way that I explain a rotator cuff or shoulder issue to this person is going to be very different than how I explain it to the next person who has the shoulder issue, right? So understanding those little differences, I think, can be incredibly helpful in being an effective communicator. And so a lot of my experiences helped me with that, all the relationship building through orientation week, through being a Don. I still apply that on a daily basis right now. And that really is my main point, that regardless of what kind of experience you go through, that you can always reflect on what the key takeaways are. And yeah, I'll leave it at that, because I think that's I would say a quick summary, but I know that wasn't quick. But I hope I've kind of sprinkled in different themes and lessons that If they resonate, great. If not, that's okay too. But I'll be here if anyone has any questions about either anything I said or anything physiotherapy related. If you want to hear a little bit more about what I do, I'll be here for the next half hour, and I can include my contact info as well, my email, if people want to get in touch.
Awesome. Thanks, Mujib.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, it's great to hear. You've had lots of great like learning lessons and information there to share. But now we'll take a chance to, or some time to go into Q&A. I'm sure some of you came with specific information you were maybe looking to learn about physiotherapy, maybe it's the application process. I know we saw a variety of questions that were submitted in advance by everyone who registered. So I'd love to invite everyone to, you can use the reactions for your raise hand button if you want to ask some questions more specific to Mujib, and whether it was his undergrad experience, his schooling at U of T, or his work that he does now. Does anyone want to start it off? Okay, great. Allegra, you can go first, and then Junaid will come to you next.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start it off. So I'm kind of in the process of deciding which physio school I'd like to go to. I recently received an offer to Western and Queens. So I'm kind of just clawing for answers at this point, trying to figure out what to do and where to go. So I know you went to U of T, but do you have any thoughts, comments, opinions on the program at U of T compared to other programs in Ontario? And any thoughts or strong opinions about the schools overall? I'd love to hear.
Yeah, thanks a lot for asking, Allegra. And first off, huge congratulations on that achievement. That's definitely exciting news. I think those offers were sent out last week or earlier this week. So
May 13th was the big day.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so U of T is very well known for a lot, but I'll touch on two main things that U of T is known for. So it's the first thing is their catchment area. So what I mean by that is when you're in physio school, just for everyone who, if you know, please just be patient with me, but those who don't know, I'll just kind of explain. Physio school is a 2-year master's program, and it's 24 months consecutive. And over the 24 months, each student needs to attend a certain number of clinical placements. So at U of T, I had 6 placements that were 6 weeks long at different sites. So what I mean by U of T's catchment area is that there's a certain geography around each physio school that the students can potentially be matched with a clinical placement, whether it's at a hospital or a clinic or a community center. And so U of T's catchment area is quite unique because of all of the hospitals that are quite dense in downtown Toronto. So that's kind of one key component is the expertise and the specialization that they have access to. The placements there are quite rich in the specializations, whereas if you start to get outside of the downtown core, there are some hospitals that don't necessarily specialize in that same way. They're kind of more general. So having access to that specialization, I think, is hugely helpful. The other piece that I want to touch on is U of T's teaching style. I think is emphasized as being one of the more well-rounded teaching styles. They kind of teach in a variety of different methods, which is contrasted to McMaster's. McMaster is known as a problem-based learning style, which is very case-based. You're in groups and you all figure out what you want to learn and you all do it, right? It's kind of self-taught more so than U of T. U of T incorporates some of that, but it's a variety of lectures, labs, some cases, some day trips to hospitals or to clinics, in addition to the placements. So there's like a little bit of everything sprinkled throughout. And there's benefit to all of that, right? I think having self-awareness is the most important thing. Would be I wouldn't push any one person in any one direction, but I would say having that self-awareness of knowing what your own learning style and teaching style and learning needs are can help someone make that decision of which university would be a better fit in terms of those learning styles. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but that's kind of, those would be my two main things that I would say U of T stands out for.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Mujib.
No problem.
And I don't think I don't know if I missed this, but do you know much about the Queens? Did you say it was Queens and Western?
Yeah, Queens and Western are the schools that I have the offers to currently.
Right, sorry, I didn't mention anything about those two. Queens, I actually don't know much about Queens's curriculum. Western is very orthopedic and musculoskeletal care heavy, or they have a lot of expertise in that area, which is the area that I work in. So what most people think of when they think of physio: ankle sprains, tearing a ligament, having a muscle issue. A lot of the expertise across the country and especially the province comes from Western. So my second master's I did that I mentioned briefly earlier was through Western. There aren't many masters like this, and it's because all of the profs at Western specialize in this kind of area. So if you already know that you want to be an orthopedic physiotherapist, which is the area that I work in, right? So working with joints, muscles, bones. If someone already knows that that's the population they want to work in, then they have so much access and rich resources at their fingertips going to Western.
Do you think Western is still ideal if you want to explore neuro and cardio-resp as well?
You'll still have access to it for sure. Again, I don't think any other university will compare to U of T's access to that. So, and that's just because of geography. And
Yeah.
but any university that you go to, you will have access to. I don't know if it'll be a full neuro placement or a full cardiorespiratory placement, but you will have at least day trips throughout the 2 years. I don't have those details, but I do know at U of T you have to do a full placement in cardiorespiratory care, a full placement in neuro. So you kind of get your feet wet in everything is what U of T is known for. Western is known for heavy MSK content and getting good in that area. Or I shouldn't even say it that way, not necessarily getting good, but having access to that expertise.
Right. Okay. I understand.
I hope that helps. Thanks a lot for asking.
Yeah, it definitely helps. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you. And Junaid, you can go next.
Yeah. My question is kind of a two-parter. It's just about the application process, I guess. So like when you did apply to all the physiotherapy schools, did you get in at first try? And second part, I guess, would be like, what advice would you give to people who are thinking about maybe taking an extra year to figure out stuff, or how they can, I guess, strengthen their application when they do have time to apply and stuff like that?
Yeah, good questions. Thanks a lot, Junaid. So I did get accepted the first time I applied. I was sorry, I'm thinking back now. I was waitlisted for Western, and then I got accepted at U of T. So I was super pumped about that. I think that was all that your first question was, right? Did I get okay? And then the next part, so advice and tips for someone taking a year off. Yeah, so that was something that I did. So I did my 4 years at Waterloo. I kind of mentioned that I fell in love with student leadership. I became a Don, and that was kind of sparked from everything I learned from planning orientation weeks. That led to the next thing, led to the next thing. So in my year off, I was supervising a group of dons at UW Place. So that was my full-time job. At the surface level, not physiotherapy related at all, right? But I think if we think about that second concept at the start of this talk of what are skills that you can that you're learning from what you're doing. So there was so much carryover and transfer from what I was doing in my supervisory and management role at that residence that I still use in my day-to-day today, a lot of which that I've kind of talked about, the teamwork skills, conflict management and resolution, communication, especially. So basically my advice would be, it doesn't necessarily have to be physio related. It can be, but I don't think that, so U of T and MAC have some kind of, and Allegra can, I think, expand on this a little bit more because it may have changed, but U of T and MAC have this additional interview-like process that I think Queens and Western don't. But when you're answering those questions, you don't get like bonus points or brownie points just because what you decided to do was physio related. I don't think that actually gives someone an edge over someone who doesn't, because I had multiple people in my class. I actually had one of my close friends was in his early 30s when he was in my physio class, and he was a painter. He painted a physio clinic. He painted all kinds of buildings for 10 years, and then he finally painted a physio clinic, and the physiotherapist was like, hey, do you have neck pain by chance? Like, why is your posture like that? And then he got treated, and then he went back to York. And sorry, again, here's one of my tangents, but then he was in my class, and so he got in and didn't have a lot of physio experience, but he was able to chat about how meaningful his experience with that physiotherapist was. He was able to chat about everything he learned from owning his own business and running his own business for 10 years. And as long as you can link that to an understanding of what you're going to be doing as a physiotherapist, because you are going to be managing your own caseload, and you're going to be a functioning team member. Just like I said, I work within a team. But even if you're a sole practitioner physio, my second example of how I communicate with family doctors, that's something that a physio will have to do as well, even if you're a solo practitioner. So I know this is a long-winded answer, but I would say you can pursue whatever you want to pursue. If it's something that you're genuinely interested, I think that's something that I would keep in mind, because that way it's just easier getting up out of bed every morning, that you can be a bit more excited to do what you're doing. And it doesn't have to be physio related for that year. But as long as you're reflecting and linking what you're learning to what you want to do and the why behind you want to be a physiotherapist, and being able to identify transferable skills that would allow you to be successful and effective as a physio, then I'll kind of leave it at that. That would be my tip.
That was great. Thanks, Mujib. Appreciate it.
No problem, Sinead.
Allegra has another question.
Yeah, I was just going to elaborate on Mujib's answer. So McMaster does the Cura Talent interview for their second part of the application process, and U of T does the CAP test for their second part of the application process. And so kind of like Mujib was talking about, it doesn't matter about like physio experience specifically, like those tests or interviews want to get to know you for who you are and those transferable skills. So it doesn't matter if you have any specific physio experience, while it does help, but you can totally take different experiences and transfer those skills for those tests and for those applications.
Thanks a lot, Allegra. I appreciate that.
Great. Raya has a question.
Yeah, so my question is mainly about the program itself. So I'm planning to pursue, like, for someone who's planning to pursue any sort of career in medicine, how does health studies or health sciences help, and how is it better than other undergraduate programs like life sciences in order to be able to like pursue that in terms of whether it is co-op, GPA, or other factors?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would start with how applicable it is to the real world. This is kind of my bias, or my 2 cents, is that if you go into a purely science-based program, I didn't mean to allude that that's not going to set someone up for success for a profession in healthcare, but I do think that from a motivation standpoint, I loved that kinesiology right away. I could make the links between what I'm learning in class and how it applies to the human body and what I could be potentially pursuing after kin. That gap didn't really exist. I could very clearly identify why I was learning what I was learning in a couple first year kinesiology courses to what I could be doing in the real life world, or how some of the health studies courses, we have such amazing expertise at UW. It's actually some of the courses and profs and are pretty well recognized, I would say, at UW. And especially I think around policy development in particular. But I think the same, my main point is the same for this, and that I think that gap between what I'm learning right now as an undergrad student and how it relates to the real world and what I could be doing when I'm working after this is bridged quite effectively in an AHS program personally with my teal bias. That's just my 2 cents. Whereas I did take some science courses as well in my time at UW. And I mean, if you know you want to be a pharmacist, you can see that translation of organic chemistry and what you're doing there, and right away how it can apply to what you're going to be doing in the future, right? But if you don't know which profession you're going to be in, my main point earlier today was that I think kin really has the most, or kin and health studies, AHS in general, allows for, I think, the majority of doors to remain open, whereas sometimes when you go into a general science-based program, I'm just going to leave it at that. That's all I'm going to say. I think I get my point across. Does that help?
Yes, that helps a lot. Thank you.
Okay, and that's just from my experience, from not just me, but my friends, and taking some science courses as well, and having friends who have done some science-based programs. But if you know that you want to be in healthcare, working with people, I've just found that, to summarize my main point, that bridge is just that gap is bridged more effectively.
Great.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add is we used to always talk about how life sciences, you will learn about all life. So plants, animals, and humans. So I think that's the other piece, is that you would learn about all life versus kinesiologies and health were focused very much on people. And Rad, just so you're not confused, when Mujib came to school here, our faculty was called Applied Health Sciences. So that's the AHS that he is referencing, but you are currently applying to the Faculty of Health, but it's the same thing, just in case you weren't sure what that was.
Oh, right. Yeah, because I was kind of confused, but thank you for clearing that out.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks a lot, Jen. Sorry, that's my fault.
That's
Is the
okay.
color the same at least?
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
Ta-da. We just call ourselves the Faculty of Health now.
Okay.
Anyways, who else has questions? Sorry, I forgot. Is it Needy?
Yeah, it's Nidhi. Yeah, so I just finished my Bachelor of Science in Health, and I will be studying a master's in Kin at Waterloo this fall. But and I do eventually want to get into physical therapy school, but since I don't have a kin background, do you have any tips as to how maybe I can do better at the master's and maybe get into the physiotherapy school at my first attempt?
Sorry, Nidhi, I missed the last few words of your question. You're asking about any tips for your master's and
if you have any tips for the application process and getting into physiotherapy school at the first attempt.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I think that, thanks a lot for asking, Nidhi. I really appreciate it. I think that there's this misconception out there that you have to have a kinesiology undergrad in order to apply to physiotherapy. I would say half of my class had a background in kinesiology. The other half was such a huge, widespread, ranging from someone having a master's in arts to another master's student in a totally different subject. A lot of someone had a bachelor's in history. I had my friend that I mentioned earlier today. So every year there's a very diverse class that comes from very different academic, not just academic, but very diverse backgrounds as a whole. And what I would say is for anyone to be familiar with what the entry requirements are for physio school, which may have changed since I applied, but the main requirements from a course perspective were having anatomy and physiology. So, and I think that was it. And otherwise you could apply to any physio school. Now, I will say the people in my class who already took anatomy through a kin program, I think this is just anecdotal, right? So this isn't a research study. Anecdotally, in my class, the individuals who took an anatomy class or course through the kin program as opposed to a different course, they found that the anatomy came a little bit quicker because it was a review of what they had already learned, whereas some anatomy classes are based off of, like when you go into a cadaver lab and it's a cat cadaver, whereas at Waterloo, it's human cadavers, right? So, but now I'm getting a little bit off topic. So, yeah, my main tip I would say for anyone is to be familiar with what the entry requirements are, because it's actually less than what one might think. So I think that is my answer for one of your questions, and I forget the other one. Sorry about that, Nidhi. What was the other question?
Yeah, just some tips for my master's in kin, if you have any.
I don't know if I'm the most appropriate person for that. All I know about the masters in kin at Waterloo is that you can actually do like a course-based master's or a research-based master's, and that's the extent of what I know about the masters in kin, and I think that's actually pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm doing the course-based one, so yeah, I think that's fair enough. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. And sorry if that was not helpful, but if you have other questions, I'll have my email available, and you can feel free to send me some other questions.
Sounds
and
good. Thank you so much.
I think I would add to that, just when you start, if you're here on campus for your courses, or once you have a grad advisor, they could probably direct you or give you some ideas on what type of which courses to choose that may be helpful or beneficial in your future applications as well. So the advisors can be a lot of help in that area.
Yep. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, no problem. Who else has a question for Mujib? Jordy.
Oh, I have a question, and then I do have something to add on for Nidhi.
Sure.
Also, I think you want to double check the websites and keep in mind, because I believe some of the schools, or most of the schools, when you do apply for PT school, they take a look at, if you do a course-based master, they count those grades as well when they do it in the ORPAS portal. So keep that in mind. So GPA does matter. It will count your sub GPA. And then my question for Mujib is, what is like one of your challenges starting off as an outpatient physiotherapist, and how did you overcome that challenge?
Thanks a lot, Jordy. Thanks for asking. Thanks for helping out with the earlier question. One of my earlier challenges as an orthopedic physiotherapist was being comfortable with developing my own caseload. So it's rare to walk into a clinic and have a fully busy schedule waiting for you. Like, that doesn't happen often. Sometimes it happens when the job that you are accepting is a maternity leave contract that you're taking over. So it's a temporary contract. So you're seeing the patients of another physio. And so when I started off, I wasn't super busy and I needed to be okay with that. And so I needed to reflect on what are some strategies that I want to utilize to help build my own caseload. So at the time, and even right now, I was pretty into volleyball. I thought about, what are some of the different networks that I'm a part of, and what are some of the different ways that I could try to build my caseload by taking initiative. And so I thought about my volleyball network. I thought about my rock climbing network, and I thought about reaching out to, or I didn't think about, but I actually did reach out to different family doctor practices in the area. So just to kind of paint a picture, Jordy, early on during this time period, I would go to the clinic, let's say for 8 hours. Right now, I see anywhere from 12 to 14 patients in a day. The time frame that I'm talking about right now, early on, I would see anywhere from 2 to 5 patients a day. So I had lots of fill time, or something that I needed to. I'm someone that likes to be productive, so this is what I gave thought to: is how can I utilize this time in a way that I can get more patients in the future. So I came up with an action plan, reached out to different family doctor clinics in person, created these little packages of what our clinic is about and what we offer, the types of services, the types of patient populations. And I reached out in a similar way to people at the rock climbing gym. And so basically, to summarize, one of the biggest challenges was being comfortable in walking into a work setting that I wasn't fully busy in. And so I did my best to try to use that time to come up with an action plan on how I can create and develop my own caseload.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jordy.
Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left. So does anyone else have any other questions? Sarah, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I just had a question, kind of, I guess, goes off of the one that was just asked, but do you wish you would have known anything before getting into physiotherapy?
Yeah, good question. Thanks a lot, Sarah. Something that I wish I would have known is at the start of this talk, I briefly mentioned the different kind of specializations or different areas that physiotherapists can work in. And so I mentioned the cardiorespiratory area, the neurological population, and then orthopedics. Even within each of those, you can get even more specialized. And so all of this, I didn't know to the extent of detail that I do right now. And specifically, what I wish I had known is that physiotherapists can perform spinal manipulation. So when I was going through physio school, I didn't learn that until my second last clinical placement. I had a supervisor who performed spinal manipulation with his patients, and one of his patients came up to me afterwards and encouraged me to, they literally said, whatever you do when you're done, you got to learn to do what this guy does. And so it was a session that it was just the two of them because that patient wasn't comfortable with anyone else. He described, so my supervisor described the case to me. So it was someone who had a surgery. So they had a tumor on their chest and they had it removed, and they've had pain for a number of years since then. And my supervisor was able to explain his thought process on how that could be linked to their rib pain that they were having, which can be linked to a joint in their back. And he performed a spinal manipulation technique, which helped a lot with their pain. So that kind of opened my eyes at that point, that there's a world in orthopedics that I don't know about and I need to learn more about. So that's kind of the world that I ended up doing a second master's in. But yeah, so to summarize, I wish I had known going into physio school about some of the specializations that exist.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Sarah.
Okay, I think we might have time for one more question. If anyone wants to sneak one more in.
Can I ask one more quick question?
Yeah, go for it.
So that that additional master's program you took is the one at Western, right? Correct?
Yep.
And then were you able to still like practice at your outpatient location while still completing that master's?
Yeah, the way that this master's was designed is a part-time master's. So it was primarily online. I would say about 75% of it was online. And over the course of the year, I needed to be at Western for 3 residency periods, is what they called it. So I was there for 3.5 weeks in September, 3 weeks in February, and 2.5 weeks in July. So during those residency periods, I wasn't working clinically. But outside of that, I would be studying anywhere from 20 to 30 hours a week and working at the clinic. About the number they said was you shouldn't be working more than 24 hours a week. So that's what I did. Yeah, so and just for a little bit more context, because that's a good question. The main thought with that is that way you're learning not only virtually, and what you're learning in the residency periods, you can apply with your patients right away. So if I learned something one day, a new technique or a skill or a new thought process or something that was researched in an article, I can then apply that the very next day. So that's why they structured that program in that manner.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jordy.
Great, and we'll let Kayla squeeze in her the last question.
Oh, Kayla, you might be on mute. I don't know.
If you're having trouble, you can always put your question in the chat, and we can give you a second to get it in there so Mujib can answer it. Okay, just to fill some silence while if we get that last question in, Mujib, tell us what your favorite part of your workday is.
Yeah, that's a good question. My favorite part is my favorite part. So a little bit about what a 30-minute session looks like with me. I have there are kind of 3 pillars of what is constantly supported in the literature for what will be the most helpful for orthopedic conditions. And that's education, manual therapy, and exercise. I'll see people with just wanting manual therapy for a full 30 minutes. I'll see people that just want exercise or they just want to chat, or people who don't know what they want and they need some guidance figuring that out. And all of those scenarios exist and will always exist. But I find it very rewarding when a 30-minute session is done and someone tells me that they learned something, they're feeling better walking out, and they have some new tools to implement and work on. So they have a little bit of all three of those pillars. So they have some education. I was able to do something through manual therapy to alleviate their symptoms. And now they have either a new exercise or we've taken one of their previous exercises and changed it. So that's kind of a very fulfilling 30 minutes for me. And I mean, so that's one thing. The other most important thing I would say is the fulfillment and gratitude I get when someone tells me what their goal is on day one. So whether it's to run a certain distance, or to be able to hold their grandchild for X amount of time without pain. And then when we hit that goal, and if we hit it sooner than when they want to, and when I know that we're capable of achieving a certain timeline and we get there, and when I see the happiness and feel the gratification that they have from achieving that goal, that's ultimately my favorite thing, is helping them help themselves get to that point.
Awesome. I love that. I think Kayla can try to ask a question again. They're having mic problems.
Hey, Mujib. This is Aaron. Actually, I'm just using my friend's account. Yeah, just wanted to know, I had a question about the time in between your undergrad and master's for physio. Does that like really matter? If you were to take like a 1 year gap in between undergrad and master's, as opposed to like 2 years or 2.5 years, something like that? Like, does as far as the master's school accepting you or considering you, would they value a person with just 1 year gaps or the longer year gaps more?
Good question, Aaron. Thanks a lot for asking. Ultimately, I don't think that that's a part of the criteria that the universities or the programs will consider in their admission selection process, the number of years off. Some considerations that I would have for people, though, is that how the GPA is calculated, which I think Jordy kind of alluded to, is that I think the most recent 2 years is how it was for when I was applying. And so if you're applying in fourth year, they might not have access to your fourth year marks. They'll see maybe half of your fourth year and then half of your second year and then all of your third year. Don't quote me on that, but that's kind of, if I remember correctly. So that's kind of one consideration that goes into that timeline question that you're asking about. The other consideration I would say is what is done in that time off is a huge factor that can be considered, especially in the schools that have more than just a marks-based admission selection. So Mac and U of T especially, they will be asking some interview-based questions that I think Allegra alluded to. And so the most important thing is, what did you learn in your time off and how is that relevant to or helpful? How is it going to help you be a physio? I think just showing some self-reflection and self-awareness about what you've done during that time and how it can be applied or how it can help you be a physio. I think ultimately those reflection pieces are the most important rather than what specifically you've done. I mean, obviously what you do is important to a certain extent, but I don't think it has to be something physio related.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Aaron.
And I do also want to add, like, there's students that are mature, unmature students that apply 3 times and they don't get it until the 3rd time. What they do is that, I'm not in that scenario, but what they do is that they just work on either like upgrading their sub GPA marks if they feel like their marks are lacking, or during that time frame, if they need to do more volunteering, they do that. So during each application cycle, those reviewers, they know that you're working on something to improve yourself, or whether you just take that year off to think about what you want to do with life, that's okay too.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Great tips. What a lovely conversation. I think so much learning from Mujib, but then everybody else helped each other learn different things today too. And that is so great. And yeah, I love that. So looking at the time, we're a little bit over, so I think we'll wrap things up. But thank you so much, Mujib, for being here and offering your advice and information to our students and graduates and everybody here. So thank you so much for being here. Yay.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot for having me, everyone. I had a great time, and I hope it was helpful.
Yeah, and you said, I just want to confirm before I hit enter here, you were happy to share your email with the group. Is it your Gmail, or do you have a U of T you'd prefer to share?
Gmail is good.
Gmail, okay.
Good. Yeah.
All right, there we go, everyone. It's in the chat. If you want to reach out and connect with Mujib further, there is his information. And on that note, thank you all for joining. You will get an email for attending, just with a quick survey. So if you don't mind taking the 5 seconds it takes to choose your emoji smiley face, I'd appreciate you taking the time to do that. And then if you have any feedback about your experience, that would be great. And yeah, we're hosting more alumni office hours events this term. So in June, our kin grad is a paramedic, actually. So if you're interested in learning more about that, or yeah, anything else, we've got lots of great sessions coming up. So thanks everyone for being here, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.